Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And as you normally know, I don't do this program by myself, but unfortunately today, I will be doing it by myself. Now, for those of you who are wondering why we are so late today, well, let's just say this is my second time doing the program. I'm sitting up here the whole time doing the program thinking, it's going out, everything is good, I'm talking, I'm conversating, and sure enough, the program was not even running. Odd, just odd. But anyway, it is what it is. We will deal with our technical difficulties as they stand. I got no problem with that. Anyway, I hope you don't. But anyway, I hope you'll enjoy the program anyway. Before we get into it, want to remind you today is a very special day. It's a very special day that we know as Taco Tuesday.
It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes. It's raining tacos. It's raining tacos out in the street. All you can eat, lettuce and shells, cheese and meat. It's raining tacos, yum, 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 it's like a dream.
That's right, folks. It is like a dream. Taco Tuesday, gotta love it. First of all, we enjoy eating good food and talking good tacos. And normally, this is the time where Mike and I would kind of exchange stories about the types of tacos that we would eat. But unfortunately, once again, with Mike not being here, him off being somewhere, flying the friendly skies, it's just going to be us today. So in any case, enjoy your tacos today. If you like particular type of tacos, or if you want to recommend something that's not, normal, not just like regular street tacos or fish tacos or something like that, if you got a recipe, put a link in the description. Put a link in the comments section. Would love to check out your taco recipes or wherever you like to get your good tacos on Taco Tuesday. Also, would like to take a quick moment to give a shout out to our sponsors. Folks, these are the folks who bring us to you. So please, we want to make sure that you try and get to them. The first is Hitman Industries. That's Hitman Industries. If you own an AR, chances are you already have one of their barrels somewhere in your gun safe. But if you don't, it would be a good barrel to add either to a new build or to maybe do a swap out on your current AR. They have those as well as other firearm parts and accessories. All you got to do is check them out at hitmanindustries.net. That's hitmanindustries.net. Also, check out the California Republican Assembly. Ronald Reagan once referred to them as the conscience of the Republican Party, or as I like to refer to them, the Republican wing of the California Republican Party. Folks, these are folks who are dedicated to electing conservative, pro-Second Amendment, pro-life, pro-family, pro-free enterprise Republicans. So check them out, cragop.org. That's cragop.org. Check them out. If you like what you see, become a member today. Also, the folks over at Hog Holsters, you can find them at hogholsters.com. That's helping Americans wear guns. The best place to go for custom holsters. You go there, check it out. Whatever firearm you have, I promise you they will be able to find a holster for you. And the best part is, when you go to check out, make sure you put the rundown in the little discount code, and you'll get a discount for supporting Hog Holsters. That's hogholsters.com. Hog, HAWG. holsters.com. And finally, uscombatgear.com, the place to go to get all your fine tactical gear. If you're looking for gloves, shirts, coats, eyewear, headwear, whatever it is, ears, whatever it is, they've got it there, and they've got it at a great price for you. Veteran owned and operated. That's uscombatgear.com. All right, let's move into today's stories. We'll start with this first one. For those of you who may not have been paying attention, starting to wonder exactly where you have been at, the election is over. Well, the voting supposedly is over. The election itself, maybe not so much, as we are still a week later counting votes. We already know that the Senate has been won by the Democrats. It's been won by virtue of the fact that they now have 50 elected senators. They have actually, it turns out, they have somehow counted enough votes to declare victory in Nevada, which gives them 50. Plus, they have Kamala Harris, our esteemed vice president and mumbler. They have her as the 51st vote. So right now, the only one that's still really in question is Georgia. There's going to be a runoff there in Georgia between Warnock and between Walker. That's going to take place on December 6th, and that would give us our 50th vote. So if we're not going to lose any ground there, if we're not going to lose any ground in the Senate, we got to win that seat. Anyway, and that's for a full 6-year term. So it's something we're involved in. But where we do still have a shot is in the House. That's right. The House elections are very, very close, and they've now gotten it to a point where there are 217 confirmed wins by Republicans. They only need one more. We need one more seat, right? There you have Democrats have 206. That would mean for Democrats to win, they would have to sweep all 12 of the remaining seats that are still up. Now, here's the reason why there's room for optimism. Let's see here. Let me move this over just a little bit more for you so that you can see it. So here you see these seats right here. Now, before I do that, let me show you these right here. Look, California, 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 California. Why are all these California seats still open? Because somehow, for some reason, we who are here at the home of internet technology and technology, the place where Silicon Valley resides, we still cannot figure out how to vote and count the ballots in the same day. I am befuddled by that, especially when you consider when we were kids, it was no problem. You go to the election, you go to the thing, you vote, go to the polls, you vote. That night, you find out who your elected representatives are. Today, we still do not know. But the good news is that here, if you look here, we have 2 seats. David Valadao and Mike Garcia, 2 incumbents who are running for re-election, and it is looking like they are going to win. Right now, they are projected to win. We only need one of those seats to get the majority. And it looks like right now we're in line to win 2 of those seats. So a Republican majority does look like it's coming to the House of Representatives, which isn't the victory that we wanted. It's not as good as we wanted, but it's not as bad as it could have been. Let's put it this way. We still have control. We don't have as much control as we would have liked, but, I'll take a win, even if it is a mediocre win. Now, here's the thing that we have to be concerned about. Now, there was a time back in 1994 when we had what's called the Contract with America, where there was a sweeping red wave that even included California. Well, what happened back then in California was Republicans took over the House, or the Assembly is what we call it here, the lower house here in California. And the Republicans, well, let's just say nobody was more surprised than Republican leadership when they woke up on Wednesday morning and realized that we had won majority. And back then, Willie Brown was Speaker. If you have not heard of Willie Brown, he was the Democratic Speaker for 20 years. He was a political genius. Anyway, the dude knew how to run the legislature. He knew how to build coalitions. And one of the coalitions he built was he somehow got individual Republicans to vote, to agree to, if all the Democrats voted for them to be leader, or Speaker of the Assembly, then they would agree to a power sharing agreement, that they would support them. And so you had that. You had they happened 3 different times over the year of 1995. You had Paul Horcher, you had Doris Allen, and you had Brian Sentencich. All of them, once one got recalled, the next one would then step up and say, I'll do it. I'll be speaker. You make me speaker and I'll keep your power sharing agreement. Sure enough, they did, and they got recalled. It happened 3 times. It took a year for Republicans to take over. Well, now it's looking like we're looking at something very similar here it looks like we're looking at something very similar happening right here in Washington, D.C. as establishment Republicans, and I don't like to refer to them as establishment. I prefer to call, they are establishment, but some people refer to them as RHINOs. I prefer to call them jackasses in elephant suits. But in any case, they are actually stepping up and saying, hey, if you vote for me for speaker, I will. If you vote for me, I will give you something. And my guess is it's going to be a power sharing agreement. And right now, there's a Representative Biggs out of Arizona who appears to be that guy.
Congressman, you're being reported as the top challenger to Kevin McCarthy. Come on, it sounds like can you confirm or deny whether or not this is true? I mean, it sounds like you're almost there. Maybe you want to announce.
Lydia, we have a new paradigm here, and I think the country wants a different direction from the House of Representatives, and it's a new world. And yes, I'm going to be nominated tomorrow to the position of Speaker of the House. We'll see if we can get the job done. And the votes, it's going to be tough. I mean, Kevin has raised a lot of money and done a lot of things, but this is not just about Kevin. I think it's about institutional direction and trajectory, and that's where we're going to see if we have enough people who agree that we need to change the trajectory of this place and open it up so where people can actually represent their constituency in a more open and transparent manner.
So let's just make this clear. It sounds like you just announced.
Yeah, I guess I did, kind of. Didn't I?
So there you have it. We have some good news tonight. Your colleague.
Okay, so this is not good news. I don't know why Newsmax is trying to this. I think it's called Prime News from Newsmax. I don't know why they're trying to say it's good news. It's not good news. Because here's why. Like Kevin McCarthy, for all of his faults and all of his being, because he, by the way, is an establishment Republican. I do not consider him to be necessarily a whether you want to call it MAGA Republican, conservative Republican. He's a pragmatic Republican. He's a pragmatic, but now he has fought with, and in some cases fought for, some conservatives. He has also been responsible for folks like David Valadao, who voted to impeach President Trump. He's still responsible for him running unopposed. Now, mind you, let's talk about pragmatic. Pragmatic is that's a guy who's about to win re-election in his seat and help to keep a Republican majority. So I may not like that he didn't support that he supported a squish, but as long as that squish is still going to support the Republican majority, then I got to say, well, at least it wasn't for nothing. But in any case, what you have here is you have a guy who's basically what he's saying is the only way he's going to get Democrats to support him, right? The only way he's going to get them is by agreeing to some sort of power sharing, meaning giving Democrats more authority and power in Congress than they would normally be allowed to have being in the minority, right? But it's not unprecedented, especially if he gets to be named speaker. There's not a whole lot of people who've ever been Speaker of the House. So even if he winds up getting recalled by his district back there in Arizona, I don't even know if Arizona has a recall provision. But even if he winds up getting recalled, he could wind up controlling things, or at the very least get his name going down in history as Speaker. And for some folks, that's enough. I don't know why. I don't know why that's enough for them, but for some folks, they're okay with that, and they would be fine if that's all they ever got. So anyway, this guy, definitely not a good guy, definitely needs to be shot down. It is not a good thing, despite what the folks, that individual there at Newsmax wanted to tell you. So anyway, beware of jackasses in elephant suits. All right, next we have Big Tech. Big Tech is tracking you, and there have been two stories in the last 24 hours about Big Tech tracking you. The first has to do with Google. They have actually settled a lawsuit. They basically in this lawsuit, they have agreed to pay $391.5 million to within 40 states for illegally tracking users' locations, basically violating the privacy, their own privacy policy, and I don't believe federal law, because I don't know that they were charged with any necessary crime, but so they were tracking people and their locations without telling them, right? They were tracking them without telling them. Now you ask, why do they do that? They do that because Then they know, well, what restaurants do you like to go to? What kind of restaurants? Do you go to gun ranges? Do you go to stores or grocery stores? By knowing the different places that you go, they then know how to market to you. So when you see ads popping up on your phone or popping up on your computer, based on something that you were looking at or someplace you went, now you know why, because Google was tracking you. Now, also along the lines of that, you had Apple. Apple has just gotten sued. Now, this is a brand new lawsuit, because in this particular case, not only are they tracking people, but even when you turn the settings off, your location settings off, as well as your settings that tell where you're going and what you're looking at or what apps you have and all of that, even when you turn all of that off, they were still tracking you. So this is a lawsuit that was just filed, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this one pans out, because, we just saw now that Google settled. I would not be surprised to see a settlement come down from Apple. And it's just kind of ironic because, Apple is supposed to be, they bill themselves as this, we protect your privacy more than anyone else, right? They're supposed to be the defenders of privacy in the tech industry. And here we find out that, no, they're not. And they probably won't tell you. They probably cannot tell you, honestly, that they're not selling or giving away this data or this information. But their claim is where they're using it to improve the user experience. I don't know exactly how they're doing that, but that's exactly what they are claiming. My guess is this is what they will be claiming. We shall see. Anyway, moving right along to our next story, colleges ignoring test scores. All right, so when I went to college, and even when my kids went to college, they had these things called, and not so much entrance exams, but you took the SAT and the ACT. And the goal of these things were to determine how ready you were for college, right? Because you never know with grade inflation, you never know what a school's grades actually mean. The point of a standardized test is so that you can get an objective read on where someone is. Well, in this particular case, they're finding that they're not going to be utilizing these test scores anymore. In fact, 80%, that's right, 80% of four-year colleges are saying, we're not going to require standardized tests for fall 2023 admissions. Meaning, we have 1.5 million fewer people applying to go to college. And if we're going to pay our bills, we're going to need more people, even if they aren't necessarily, prepared to be here. So come on in, pay the fees. And that's what they're looking for. To be quite honest, they're looking for people who can come in and pay the fees. Because here's what's going to happen. You're going to have people who are going to get in who aren't ready to be there. You're going to have people who get into elite universities who probably should have went to a middle tier university. You're going to have people who got into middle and lower tier universities that probably should have went to community college and gotten some remediation, right? Gotten better at reading, writing, and doing math. Maybe things like those little, 5-paragraph essays. But they're not going to do it, right? And what's going to happen is they're going to fail. And they're not going to fail because they're not smart. They're not going to fail because they're not capable. They're going to fail because they weren't prepared to be there, period. And instead of getting them prepared to be there, instead of putting them not just in a position where they can fail, but feel good about getting into a university or a big university, but a position where they're not prepared to be there and they will inevitably fail. And that's quite honestly what the big downfall of most affirmative action programs are, is they wind up mismatching students with universities. They basically take students who aren't prepared to be at particular universities and they allow them to attend, and they do nothing to make sure that they're prepared to be there. And in the end, they wind up failing and falling out. But once again, they don't care. I don't know why we should, except that, anyway, it bugs me, but who cares, Anyway, so then there's that. All right, moving right along. Our next story, let's see. Next story, here we go. So in our next story, we have another challenge to the bump stock ban. As you know, President Trump decided that he was going to ban bump stocks He was not going to do it legislatively. He had the ATF basically redefine what a machine gun is, and then redefine them to include bump stocks. And then with that, they would then be able to ban bump stocks. Now the problem is this: is that bump stocks are not bump stocks, but machine guns are actually defined in the law. Right? The law as written by the legislative branch, signed into law by the executive branch. It's actually written there what a machine gun is. So the executive branch doesn't get to redefine something or change what is in statute. Now the problem is this particular case, which the Supreme Court refused to hear, was based on what's called takings, meaning the government took something without giving you proper remuneration or without giving you money for it. There are many firearms cases that are filed based on takings. I once again, I'm not a lawyer, but I can't think of any that have actually been successful, because usually in takings cases, the government has to actually take possession of it, and then you get nothing in return. In this particular case, all they've done is ban it. So you can destroy it, you can sell it out of state, you can do whatever, but you're just not allowed to possess it. So in their cases, in their instance, there's like, well, this isn't really a takings case. What I've yet to see is an executive overreach or a separation of powers case where they're talking about it from that perspective, saying, things that are defined in the legislation, you don't get to change in the executive. Now, we have seen a case similar to this that was just decided in this last session. It had to do with the EPA. And it talked about how the EPA could not just go and write law or create law. That had to go through the executive branch. The legislative branch. So what I'm hoping, and I don't know if there are any cases out there, if you know of any cases out there that aren't primarily built on the idea of separation of powers or executive overreach, let me know. Go ahead and put it in the comment section. But if those cases, I believe one of those cases would get taken up. And in particular, what I'm hoping that they will cite is that EPA case that was just heard. Because quite frankly, my friends, that is the meat and potatoes. That is where we need to be concerned. Because here's the deal. I don't own a bump stock. I don't want to own a bump stock. In California, ammo's too darn expensive. It is. It's just too darn expensive to be rapid firing it. But having said that, if we allow a president that we like, and a lot of us like Donald Trump, to violate separation of powers and use executive overreach to ban a firearm or a firearm part that we don't like or don't care about, then what's to keep a future president, Joe Biden, from using the same exact thing to ban a firearm or firearm part that we do like or believe in? Semi-automatic centerfire rifles, suppressors. Because that's what he's asked the ATF to do, in case you guys do not know. That's exactly what Biden has asked the ATF to do. And they're modeling it right after what Donald Trump did. So we need the Supreme Court to decide on this, not for the sake of bump stocks, but when it comes to separation of powers, right? And by the way, this is not just, for those of you who are not gun nuts or interested in guns, it's not just about that. If we allow any department to start writing laws in the executive, then you wind up creating an instance where the president can basically just rewrite law at will. Then you have a dictatorship. We no longer have a representative republic. We now have a dictatorship. And that is what you're going to see happen if we don't turn this around. So anyway, that's an important case to follow. Let's move right along to our parting shots. There we go. Okay. So our parting shots, our first one here, this is in honor of our elections. As we know, that we were expecting a red wave, and in many places in the United States, there was a huge red wave. Florida, for example. Even as much as it may not seem like it, even in California, with the number of seats that we're going to be picking up in both the House and several legislative branches, we're looking at a bit of a red wave. But there are still a lot of places out there where there were some of you out there, you independents, you libertarians, you you Republicans or you conservative Democrats who could not, despite the economy, despite inflation, despite high crime, despite all of this stuff that you know that the administration either didn't fix or actually caused, you still couldn't find yourself to vote Republican. This is your I voted sticker. It says, I continued the cycle of my own oppression today. That's your I got out and voted sticker. That's for you. As I like to say, here's your sign. And our second one today, well, this has to do with the bullet train. Now, for those of you who may not be aware, in the state of California, we have a bullet train. Well, we don't have one. We have the promise of one that is about, well, let's see, it was supposed to be done like 4 years ago. It's been like 13 years. It's now hundreds, or it's now over, it was supposed to be about 10 to 13 billion. It's now estimated cost of over 100 billion to go from Fresno to Bakersfield. If you're in California or out of California, you don't know where those two places are. You know why this is such a boondoggle, because they're almost really close. Anyway, that having been said, you know it's a waste of money. Well, it looks like there may be a new private partnership that will actually take it not just from Bakersfield to Fresno, but from California to Texas. And it will be sponsored by U-Haul. That's right. I believe this may be a way in which that they will be able to get all of their trucks back, because, you know, we keep sending trucks over there and no one seems to be wanting to move to California from Texas. So all their U-Haul trucks are stuck over there. So my guess is that they'll have passengers going to Texas and they'll have their U-Haul trucks coming back from Texas. For those of you who are wondering, this is by the Babylon Bee. This is a headline. It says, U-Haul builds bullet train from California to Texas. Babylon Bee, a great satirical parody website. If you don't read it, you need to check it out. It's a lot of fun, but we thank them for today's laugh. All right, now with that, I just want to, well, we're going to call it a day, but before we do, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. We got Hitman Industries. You can find them at hitmanindustries.net, the place to buy all your firearm parts and or barrels, or at least your AR barrels. California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. You'll find them at cragop.org. Or Hog Holsters. Find them at hogholsters.com. Remember, go in, buy your holster, put the rundown into that discount code area, and you will get a nice little discount. And then there's uscombatgear.com. And on that note, we're going to go ahead and call it a day. Very much appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you liking and sharing the program, encouraging your friends to do the same. We will see you tomorrow on Hump Day. You guys have a good evening.